Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Devaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Sudevaya. Chandanam Shayvanarottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayam Hirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very meaningful congress, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of God and until that time we seek the supreme being, Lord Saraswati, of learning, and to Srila Vasudev the author. Nastavaishu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naistaki. Rendering services to pure devotees, inauspicious lives almost completely destroyed, and loving service and glorious together, with grace to transcendent songs, established as a hero of the fact. Om Nikhilodandasya Dhananjanashalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the depths of ignorance, and spiritual masters the force light of knowledge. So we're reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 2, Text 3, Text 1 through 14, so we can read just the translations first. I'll read the first one, and we can take turns. Shukadeva Goswami said, thereafter, when his son Sajumna had thus gone to the forest to accept the order of Vanaprast, Vaivasvata Manu, Shraddhadev, being desirous of getting more sons, performed severe austerities on the bank of the Jamuna for 100 years.
Then, because of this desire for sons, the Manu known as Shraddhadev worshipped the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, the Lord of the demigods. Thus he begot 10 sons exactly like himself. Among them all, Ikshvaku was the eldest.
Among these sons, Prashadra, following the order of his spiritual master, was engaged as a protector of cows. He would stand all night with the sword to give the cows protection.
Once at night, while it was raining, a tiger entered the land of the cowshed. Upon seeing the tiger, all the cows who were lying down got up in fear and scattered here and there on the land.
When the very strong tiger seized the cow screamed in the distress and fear, and Prishadra, hearing the screaming, immediately followed the sound. He took up his sword, but because the stars were covered by clouds, he mistook the cow for the tiger and mistakenly cut off the cow's head with great force.
Because the tiger's ears had been cut by the edge of the sword, the tiger was very afraid, and it fled from that place while bleeding on the street.
In the morning, when Prashadra, who was quite able to subdue his enemy, saw that he had killed the cow, although at night he thought he had killed the tiger, he was very unhappy.
Also, Prashadra had committed the sin unknowingly. His family priest Vasista cursing him, saying, "In your next life you will surely not be able to become a Kshatriya. Instead, you should take birth as Shudra because of killing of the cow."
When the hero, Prashadra, was thus cursed by his spiritual master, he accepted the curse with folded hands, and having controlled his senses, he took the vow of Brahmacharya, which is approved by all great sages.
Thereafter, Prashadra gained relief from all responsibilities, became peaceful in mind, and established control over all his senses, being unaffected by material conditions, being pleased with whatever was available by the grace of the Lord to maintain body and soul together, and being equal towards everyone. He gave full attention to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, who is the transcendental super soul, free from material contamination. Thus, Prashyadra, fully satisfied in pure knowledge, always keeping his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, achieved pure devotional service to the Lord and began traveling all over the world without affection for material activities, as if he were deaf, dumb, and blind.
So we'll chant the Sanskrit for this one, and we'll read that purport, and we'll speak on that purport. Set up. Evam vrito vanam gatva dristva vagnim uttitam tano payuktakarano Brahma papa param muni evam vrito vanam gatva dristva vagnim uttitam tano payuktakarano Brahma prapa param muni evam vritavanam gatva trisvata vagnemuttitam tano payuktakarano Brahma prapa param muni evam rato vanam gatva trisvata vagnemuttitam tano payuktakarano Brahma prapa param muni
evam rito vanam gatva
trisvata vagnemuttitam Brahma prapa param muni
Evam rito vanam gatva
Trisvata vagnemuttitam
Teno payuktakarano
tano payuktakarano Brahma prapa param muni
Evam rito vanam gatva
trisvata vagnemuttitam
Teno payuktakarano
teno payuktakarano Brahma prapa param muni. Go ahead.
Evam rito vanam gatva
Drisvata vagnemuttitam teno payuktakarano Brahma prapa param muni evam vrita being situated in such an order of life vanam to the forest gatva after going dristva when he saw dava agnim a forest fire uttitam existing there tena by that fire upayuktakarana engaging all the senses of the body by burning Brahma transcendence Prabha he achieved Param the ultimate goal Muni as a great saintly person. So let's read the translation together. With this attitude, Prasada became a great saint. And when he entered the forest and saw a blazing forest fire, he took this opportunity to burn his body in the fire. Thus he achieved a transcendental spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Lord says in Srimad Bhagavatam 4:9, Janma karma chame divyam eva yo vetitatata chatva deham punarjanma naitimam sorjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Prishadra, because of his karma, was cursed to take his next birth as a Shudra. But because he took to saintly life, specifically concentrating his mind always upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he became a pure devotee. Immediately after giving up his body in the fire, he reached the spiritual world, as mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, Mam A.T., as a result of his devotional situation. Devotional service performed by thinking of the personality of Godhead is so powerful that although Prishadra was cursed, he avoided the terrible consequences of becoming a Shudra and instead returned home back to Godhead, as stated in the Brahma Samhita. Yasta Indra Gopam Atavendra Ahosa Karma Bandhana Rupa Palabhajanam Attanoti Kamani Nidati Kintu Jabhakti Bhajam Govindam Adibrusham Tamaham Bhajami. Those who engage in devotional service are unaffected by the results of their material activities. Otherwise, everyone from the smallest microbe up to the king of heaven, Indra, is subject to the laws of karma. A pure devotee, being always engaged in the service of the Lord, is exempt from these laws. Mukam karoti vanchalam pangam langa yategirim yat kripatamaham bande shigurum dinataranam. So it's a very interesting verse and purport. From this, I'd like to try to, with your help, understand why bad things happen to good people. Why bad things happen to good people. And also the efficacy and extremely powerful potency of devotional service. And so how could this happen to such a person as Prishradha? There's a very interesting, well, first let's put this in context. Anyone whose name is mentioned within the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam must be extremely extraordinary personality to have their, even some individuals, just their name is mentioned, and we become purified just by remembering someone who's associated with Krishna. So this Prishradha is also a very extraordinary personality, and he's engaged in a very unusual pastime in which is stated here by his karma, engaged in a very abnormal activity, which was to accidentally kill a cow. So how can such things happen? And in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, there's a very interesting discussion between Gopakumara. He's just about to enter into Vaikuntha, and he's approached by residents of Vaikuntha who come down and are talking with him, and they're explaining to him the power and the glory of the holy name of the Lord, and how Harinam Sankirtan is the most powerful process for purification. It's the ultimate goal of life, and they explain it in the most amazing way. And they explain something very interesting there about how sometimes great devotees of the Lord who are fully immersed in the holy name and have fully realized the holy name, that sometimes they actually have a fear of receiving praise or glorification for being very elevated devotees, for realizing this absolute nature and truth of the pure holy name of the Lord. So they have some fear of being recognized and honored. And the Vishnu Dutas, they said, because of this, sometimes these great devotees will exhibit some abnormal activities, such as Prishradha here, who killed a cow. And they also mentioned to Gopal Kumar, the example of Bharat Maharaj, who somehow became attached to a deer, and his next life became a deer. And so the Vishnudutas were saying that actually these great souls, sometimes for our benefit also, they will exhibit these activities so that we can learn something. So Jadabharta, or Bharat Maharaj, he exhibited this pastime to show us that there's the danger of becoming materially attached. And Prishadra, he's also showing us something here, that the power of pure devotional service, because he overcame this curse. We see these examples in the Bhagavatam. Even Narada Muni was cursed, which he accepted. He accepted. Daksha cursed him that you will never be able to remain in one place. And Narada Muni accepted that as a benediction, because that's all he likes to do, is travel to different places and glorify the Supreme Lord. Parikshit Maharaj, he was cursed, and he accepted that with folded hands. He could have counter-cursed, he didn't. He accepted it, and because of that, we have Srimad Bhagavatam. Chitraketu Maharaj, also very elevated spiritual personality. He was cursed by Parvati to take birth as this a demon for Krasura. He accepted that with folded hands. And also from that pastime, you see the power of devotional service and accepting whatever comes your way with folded hands, and it has something to do with Krishna's ultimate plan. So this Vishradra, not an ordinary person, and there's something for us to learn here. So here we see how devotional service is very powerful. So it's described that Vishradra, somehow because of his karma, this happened. And yet, the situation completely turned in his favor because he went back to Godhead. So it's interesting in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yesham tvanta gatam papam jananam punya karmanam te dvandva mohanir mukta bhajante mam vridavrata. That persons who acted piously in this life and previous life, whose sinful actions are completely eradicated, they can come to Krishna. They can engage in pure devotional service. So that's a very high standard that Krishna's saying there. You have to be completely free. Isham tvanta gatam papam, completely free. So that seems to set a very high bar. But at the same time, in the end of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sarva dharman paritaja mam ekam saranam vraja aham tvam sarva papevyo mokshayashyami ma sucha. Krishna says, just surrender unto me and I will protect you from all sinful reactions. Krishna says, do not fear. Do not fear. So there's seemingly a little contradiction there. Krishna's one place saying you must be completely free. And in end of the Bhagavad Gita, it says, do not fear, I will protect you from all reactions. So here we see, because Prishadra, he surrendered to Krishna, he accepted that curse and engaged himself completely in absorbing himself in the Lord, the curse did not take effect. It did not actually affect him. So that is the glory and the power of devotional service, that even you may have so much bad karma, by engaging in devotional service, that becomes minimized and eradicated. And it's very interesting, you're chanting every morning, Nasta Preshu, Abhadreshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati Utama Shloki, Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. How by rendering service to the pure devotee and regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, everything inauspicious, it says, Nasta Praishu, is practically destroyed to nil. Practically. And there's a very interesting class Srila Prabhupada gave, and he was describing that verse, and he said this Nasta Praishu means, he said 75%. He said when you come to the point of where you're 75% free from the reactions to sinful activities, he said then your devotional service is fixed. It will be steady. So that's what that Nasta Praishu means. 75% fixed. And then you can, at that point, you can make steady advancement. So again, why do bad things happen to good people? Especially we have the example of the Pandavas, I mean, what are the bad things that happened to them? They became fatherless. Dhritarashtra and his sons made so many devious plans to kill him. Bhima was given a poison cake with a deadly poison, and somehow, by providence, he ate that cake because he likes to eat. He probably ate the whole cake. And he was thrown into a river, and it's interesting, it was described there was some types of serpents or snakes in the water that just started biting him, and somehow the venom of the poison counteracted the other poison. And it was interesting, I met this man once who said he had some kind of a swelling on his hand for many, many years, this bump on his wrist that the doctors couldn't figure out what it was. And one day he got stung by a wasp on that very lump on his hand, and it disappeared. It went away right away. So same thing with Bhima. Somehow that poison counteracted the poison, and he was saved. So not only was he poisoned, Duryodhana arranged a nice accommodation for them, a very nice palatial building, which was is described as the house of lac. So lac is something which is extremely flammable, and it would just go up in flames in a second if it was ignited. So by the evil-minded Dhritarashtra, he planned this. They were in that home, the Pandavas, and it was set on fire. But fortunately, they were given a clue that they should have this way to escape. They were deprived of their kingdom by the gambling match, and so many things happened. So why do these things happen? Why do these things happen? And there's another very nice example. I think you mentioned yesterday about Sanatana Goswami, how he was traveling in the forest on the way to Jagannath Puri, and he got this terrible oozing, Prabhupada described it as a wet itch, and he wanted to commit suicide, but Lord Chaitanya, as Uttama said, he said, no, I have plans for you. You can't, it's not your body. And he embraced Sanatana Goswami, and he was cured. And in the purports to that pastime, Srila Prabhupada, he described how Lord Chaitanya was like an artist. And he said, just as artists are very expert at mixing colors, and they combine different colors to make a very beautiful picture. And he said in the same way, Krishna and Lord Chaitanya, they arrange pastimes for their different devotees and seemingly put them into even very adverse, difficult circumstances to bring out and exemplify and bring to the focus their exalted devotional qualities. So the pastimes are actually to help us see what are these exalted Vaishnava qualities and how these great Vaishnavas exhibit them. It's a very powerful learning experience for us. So here, Prishadra, by the hand of destiny, and I think I mentioned the other day how Srila Prabhupada had said that destiny and providence, that one cannot understand it by reason and logic, but we have to understand that destiny or providence, it's actually, as the definition from the dictionary describes, it's the foresightful care of a supreme God or deity. So foresightful care, it doesn't seem like foresightful care that you're looking after cows and somehow it's cloudy and by accident you kill a sacred cow. It seems like such a tragedy. But for Prishadra, it became a catalyst for him to completely absorb himself in the service of the Lord. Completely became so absorbed. And so absorbed that the effect of that curse did not take place. So we read also in Nectar Devotion how simply by being in kirtan and dancing and clapping your hands, although you may have some karma etched in the lines of your hand, it's described there in Nectar Devotion that when you clap your hands in kirtan, those lines can change. You can be unaffected by your karma. So somehow we're unaffected, but there's some residual karma there. Prabhupada gave a nice example once that when you engage in devotional service, you're freed from the wheel of karma. And he described it like sometimes you have a fan which is spinning. It's spinning by the force of the electric motor from the electricity. However, when you pull a plug, the force propelling it is stopped, but there's still some momentum that's spinning the wheel. And so that wheel is spinning, but not with any force. So gradually, very gradually, the speed declines until it completely stops. So we also all have some residual karma. And again, Krishna, he's arranging situations for us to become free from that karma. And all those experiences are opportunities for us to become more fixed in devotional service, to practice the teachings we have learned. And that's a very important thing to understand, that we are going to reap the results of that previous karma, but it's going to happen in a way that we can benefit. We have a very nice god sister at Saranagati, and she was describing to us once, she went to Mayapur on Prikrama, and she was in this women's party, and it was divided into different groups. And she was telling us that so she was going around to the different places of pilgrimage, and she said she was praying at all the holy places, please help me become humble and tolerant, more tolerant and achieve, devoid of all sense of false prestige, ready to offer all respect to others. So she said that was her intent in prayer at all the holy places. And she said right after that, a new individual, another lady, came into the party, and our god sister said that this person was the most annoying individual she had ever met in her life, who was this kind of person who would just get under your skin and just like agitate your mind. And she said she started praying to Krishna, why is this happening to me? I've come here, I'm praying to become advanced and tolerant, and then this happens, why? And she said it just hit her like a thunderbolt that I was praying for this. She said, I was praying for this. And she said after that, as soon as she realized that, somehow she befriended that person, and somehow things magically went better. So Krishna, he arranges situations like that for us so we can become humble and patient and tolerant. And just like we tell Grihastas, and if you come to the seminar, and ashram life, Grihasta life, your workplace, your education place, there's always going to be situations where there's people who are difficult to get along with, people who will irritate you, frustrate you, annoy you. Again, why? What is there to learn from that? What is there to learn from that? Prabhupada gave us one description of how a pure devotee, even if he saw someone running to attack him, he would think, Krishna has sent this person to help me take shelter of him. What to speak of someone who's just maybe a little flippant and says something annoying to us. But we tend to not see that. But Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada, he told our god sister Jamuna, devotional service means attention to detail. And Prabhupada had minute attention to detail. Jamuna said even one time Srila Prabhupada, she was in his room and Prabhupada had a stapler on his desk and he just touched the stapler and there was a tiny bit of dust on it, and he complained to Jamuna how this was so unclean. Prabhupada was that attentive. Even sometimes the deities in Krishna Balaram, they would open, like the curtains would open 30 seconds late, and Prabhupada would make some comment on that, why the pujaris are late. He was so attentive to those kind of details. So those kind of details we have to be attentive to, and we learn that by devotional service, cleanliness, punctuality, and we also have to learn that attentiveness in detail to Vaishnava etiquette. And Vaishnava etiquette doesn't just mean, it does mean understanding what the standards are for Vaishnava etiquette, how to treat others respectfully and kindly, but it also means learning to practice that in all circumstances, to apply that knowledge of what Vaishnava etiquette is, what Vaishnava behavior is, in situations that can be more hard to apply that knowledge. And that is more hard to apply in situations where we become familiar. It's very easy to become familiar with people you associate with a lot. And in that situation, it's good to be familiar with everyone. You want to know them and become friends with them. So we want to be familiar in that way, but not familiar in that way that we become sometimes a little casual. And in that state of being casual, sometimes we can get a little triggered in situations and behave in ways which are maybe not so Vaishnava. So how not to become familiar? And one very important way to avoid becoming familiar is to appreciate, to offer appreciation to each other. And we gave a seminar once in Bengaluru with some senior couples. We were training them to become marriage mentors, and we were talking about the importance of offering appreciation to others. And so we asked the couples to express some appreciation, to each other, and to do that when they went home. And some of them came back the next day and said, that was a game changer. We've been married 20 years and we never actually ever did that. Expressed appreciation. And so appreciation, it's not like aggrandizement. Like we see how, I was just mentioning how the Vaikuntha Dutas were saying that some devotees, they would rather be defamed than offered worship. Because their egos might get inflated. So appreciation, it's not for inflating someone's ego, but appreciation is meant for expressing some quality or some service that someone has done, or some quality they have, which somehow inspired you. So that's the difference between appreciation and aggrandizement. Actually, I think it was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, someone who praises me, he's my enemy. But again, we're not praising, we're telling someone how what they did added value to your life. If anyone's ever had association with Radhanath Maharaj, if you try to offer appreciation to him, he just immediately turn around and appreciate you, and you'll feel totally lost for words. Like you won't know what to say. He just completely deflects it. So one time I thought, I'll try something different. And I just said, Maharaj, I said, I told him, I appreciate how you go out of your way, and despite your extremely busy schedule, to spend time with the youth in Prabhupada's movement. And I said, that really inspires me to help, to work with youth also. And he said, oh, thank you very much. So he accepted it. Not because it was about him, but it was actually about what he did and how it affected me. So he couldn't take that away. He couldn't deflect that. So it's very important for us to do that. And we had one incident in our community where one Mataji ran a Sunday school for 2 years in the community. And she came to us once and said, I can't do this anymore. And she was an extremely humble person, not the kind of person that wanted praise or advertisement. And so we said, well, what happened? What's the problem? And she said, I've been doing this for 2 years, and in 2 years, not one parent ever came up and said thank you. And so she said, well, maybe they don't actually like this. So failing to offer appreciation, it actually kind of disempowered her. So that's something very practical we can do, is to offer appreciation. I'm just going to ask everyone turn to someone next to you and offer them some appreciation for maybe some seva they do, something they said to you that encouraged you, just anything, and also how it added value to your life. And if you're odd person out, you can just do like 3 people together. So Mataji, maybe you can come with those two, and you 3. Can you smooth those down? Can you go with those 3? Did everyone get a chance to share with your partner? Yes. Everyone got a chance? Okay. So how did that feel? That's good, yeah. And is it hard?
No.
Can you do that regularly? Yes. And you can do it to the pujaris, to the cooks, whoever. It actually empowers us when we see that. Again, it's not like aggrandizement, but when we can perceive that we're doing something, some service, some seva, and it's adding some value to our friends or community's lives, that's actually very empowering. That's very empowering. And so it's very important to do that, an important thing not to neglect. And so again, familiarity means we take those things for granted, and then sometimes those very same persons we appreciate, we may say some little flippant, nasty thing sometime that we didn't really mean it, but somehow it just came out. Why it's important to have that appreciation is we are all going to have a bad day someday, and be a little under or a lot under one of the lower modes of material nature, and we may say or do something that didn't come across in a very good way. And we can always apologize and make amends for that. And at the same time, if we do have that attitude of gratitude and appreciation, and you're regularly seeing that in the devotees, what happens, you could refer to as something like a bank account, emotional bank account, that you have this reservoir of appreciation for the devotees around you. And it's like if you have a bank account with $100,000 in that account, and if you take out 100, the difference in the amount is barely noticeable. If you only had $500 in that bank account and you took out 100, it just went down 1/5. So if you kind of lose that sense of gratitude and appreciation for those around you, your reservoir of how you see value, it's there, but you kind of lost sight of it. It might be kind of low. And therefore, if there is a negative interaction, someone accidentally does or says something not so nice, it hurts more because you've lost that reservoir of positivity. So very important to have that attitude of gratitude. That was one of Bhakti Tirtha's taglines. He had the attitude of gratitude. So it's important because we all have some residual karma that's working out, and part of Krishna's plan is our residual karma is going to work out, and it's going to cause us a little, very minor little pains, or sometimes bigger pains as we work that out. And our residual karma may cause a little bit of pain to those around us. But we can minimize that by, again, having this attitude of gratitude and appreciation. And also, if we do something wrong, say something wrong, we can apologize, and I may have flipped out at you, Prabhu, or something. If I could come back later and say, I was having a really rough day, and I didn't really want to behave like that, but somehow it came out, and I would like to try and do that over again and make amends. We can repair. And so that's important. And again, why that's important is because we have to, Nasta Praishu, if we're here, in this room, we all must be at least 75% free from all that karma. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting. There's so many other things we could be doing. And so we have some residuals that we're trying to clean. The Gundinsha Mandir, there's little, there's straws, and they clean the mandir, and then there's like grains of sand, they clean it again. There's like minute particles of sand that they're cleaning. That's what we're doing. We're trying to clean that residual material contamination we have. So that's the process of sadhana bhakti. And we can consciously do that by practice. And so it's important to realize that, because we see how this Prashadra, he absorbed himself so much in devotional service that although he should have taken another birth in the material world as a Sudra, that was bypassed because he became so fixed in devotional service. So we have this very potent, powerful process of devotional service, and there's so much knowledge that Srila Prabhupada's given us in his purports that if we just simply take advantage of that, Srila Prabhupada, he said, we can go back to Godhead in this lifetime. So I'm going to end there. If anyone has any questions or comments. And if there's anyone who hasn't asked a question to either of us who would like to ask a question, we'll take you first. You did hand in the back there.
Thank you for the wonderful class. I have a question in the translation. It is mentioned that he took this opportunity to burn his body in fire, and he achieved the transcendental spiritual world. And yesterday, Mother Uttama also mentioned that the Sanatana Goswami, he also tried to lie down in front of the Jagannath, and he also was trying the same thing. But Mahaprabhu asked him to not do this because his body belongs to him. But how this Vishadra got the same spiritual?
You will read in Srimad Bhagavatam in the descriptions of Vanaprastha and Sannyas that sometimes Vanaprasthas, at the end of their life when they're unable to execute any service, it's described they would enter into fire. They would actually do that. That would be a Vedic thing. People would just realize, I'm just going to... So it's not exactly like suicide, but someone realized this body is old and useless, and they would simply enter into fire. So he did that. So different circumstances. Prishadra, he executed his austerities, and obviously he was fit to go back to Godhead. Sanatana Goswami, Lord Chaitanya had some service for him to do. So he said, "Not, you're not going now." So actually it's interesting, there's a seeming contradiction, but Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, these things only seem like contradictions from the material platform, but he said on the liberated platform there is no contradiction. Any other questions or comments? Prabhu?
Thank you so much for your class. I just had a question about, there's a very thin line between praising someone and appreciating someone. Could you clarify that again? Because
to appreciate, you want to say what they did or said, or some quality they have, and you also want to add how that adds value to your life. So it's not just about them, it's about how they affected you. Otherwise, it just makes that person just, you're wonderful, glorious, Superman, whatever, like. But it becomes about how you affected me. So it actually becomes about the relation that we have, not just about glorifying the person. I appreciate Kamalakanta Prabhu because he is very creatively humorous. And I find that very inspiring. And whenever I think of him, in my mind I see this picture of him with a 6-foot-long Loki squash. I get stuck in my mind. I appreciate that. I was so creative.
Like a musical
Like a musical instrument, like a rock star. I was so creative. I got inspired by it. I still remember that. One last question.
So, you say like when we engage in devotional service, we are freed from wheel of karma. But in devotional service, we often get into unfavorable situations with devotees. So, does that add to karma or like?
Not exactly karma, but we can, if we don't rectify the situation, make repairs, the offenses we may make may stifle our devotional service. And if we make too many offenses, our service might get quite stifled. So it's very important to avoid offenses. And again, we understand how in the first offense against the holy name is to criticize or blaspheme a devotee of the Lord, because we understand that's like the mad elephant offense, because all the devotees, even the new bhakta, is extremely dear to Krishna. And if we make offense, Krishna notices that. He's not going to be too pleased. So it's important to understand in those situations, we should try not to make offense. If somehow we do, we should apologize and make amends. It's very, very important. I don't want to become like Ramachandra Puri. Okay, thank you all very much. Hope you have a very nice day. Hare Krishna.